Hey, what's up? I'm Craig
Hey, this is Brandon from Musclecars.
and we throw a party called Coloring Lessons.
We're two young kids from New York. We're New Yorkers. Yeah, and we're rooted. I never really like to just box it into one sound, but we're definitely rooted into soulful house music in general. We definitely come from like the school of like Body and Soul, the Loft, 718 sessions. Going, I guess, to the music that we play, it's really just music we love. You know, we're not really trying to we're not playing things to just try to have people perceive us in a certain way.
Right.
Like these are records that we just like and super flattered that like people dance to them and love them too.
But yeah, it's definitely like a natural thing. I feel like aesthetic is kind of, it's not really something that we could even plan, you know? Like, it wouldn't be authentic if we came in here and tried to play I don't know, like a tech house set or so, just
an hour of drum and bass.
An hour of drum and bass because we're at a drum and bass party. You know, like it's, you can tell when it's authentic for sure.
When we first met, fell worlds apart. I remember.
You know, like I'm a huge fan of like Maurice von Oswald, and you know, we like techno as well. DJs like Theo Paris and Marcellus Pittman, I think, are the perfect example for, I think, the way we like to play in terms of like they're really good storytellers, and they also don't really box themselves into one specific genre. So if you go see Theo play and he's playing techno, you're not really surprised or thrown off, or if he's playing jazz, you're also not really surprised or thrown off. So I think, yeah, we try to keep it broad, but definitely rooted in house music as a foundation. I like to go off of textures too, so like if I play something if we've been playing for 30 minutes and it's like maybe there's no vocals and it's very like heavy and electronic, maybe playing a record that has live instrumentation in it and, you know, some melody, and so I think definitely diversity and trying to break things up, not being too predictable, I think is also very important, because that keeps people on their feet, and you know, they kind of want to stay for the next record. At least when I go out and see a good DJ, like that's what draws me in, is like, you know, what's the next record they're gonna play, and I think that's how you draw a crowd in, is kind of being a bit unpredictable.
But in terms of like the music that we play, the sound, at least like from the 90s, has been a bit lost, which I feel like has always been like another one of our goals, is to just kind of like bring that kind of like dance music back, like that, like those soulful elements and those like jazz elements like back to the scene, you know?
I feel like it's not so much underground dance music anymore, in a way, where it used to be very niche and in these like very DIY sort of spaces, and now it's like, I don't know, people, I feel like, are more open to experimental, different kind of things, where I feel like before maybe you had to go to maybe 1, 2, or 3 venues, where I feel like there's now a broader selection of places to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that like it's really hard, especially with this like all the music that we hear like day to day, to like put a set or put like our music, whether that's like DJing, production, like in a box. You know, like you're never really sure like what mood you're gonna be in, like how the crowd is feeling, and so you have to kind of like base it off of that, or at least that's what we like to do.
It definitely depends on the venue too sometimes, just from going to the venues, like knowing the crowds. Some venues may have, you know, a crowd that's a bit more open-minded. Some venues may have a crowd that like they're not really as open-minded to, you know, more experimental music. So it really depends on what we're playing for the most part. We definitely like to experiment for sure. I think it's important too. I think it's not really. Yeah, I don't think it's good to just go with what works, because at least for me, I get bored if I just go for what works. Like I think it's also very important for us to experiment and try different things, and yeah, sometimes you may hear something at home and it sounds really like soft, and you wouldn't think it would have a certain reaction or sound a certain way, but then when you actually play it out, it just takes on a new life of its own.
There's like so many like really records that I feel like were made for listening. That are not necessarily like dance music records, like club records, that we play all the time. I feel like having this, at least for us in like our personal style, like having such a like linear set can get like a bit boring, whereas like just like playing around with like different, as you said, like different like textures, different feelings that we hear from these tracks, I feel like that like really makes a difference. Yeah, I think like I mean with like calling lessons, it's like we did notice that like there's so many of our friends who just had no idea what like house music was. So I feel like our kind of like goal has always been just to like educate like that younger audience, which is like us, our peers, on like the music that we were kind of like brought up on, the music that we're like super influenced from. Yeah.
Because our whole thing was like, oh, if you guys like hearing the way we play, like listen to our favorite DJs play, you know? And yeah, just a party where it was not so serious at all, very inclusive, very lighthearted in terms of the music. We have things like instruments that we bring to every party so people can feel part of it. Again, going back to like inclusivity.
Yeah, I feel like that like inclusivity, like the whole topic is kind of like thrown around a lot, especially lately, but I also feel like just with like the current like climate of the dance music scene, at least like where we're from in New York City, we have like so many peers that are like really like doing the work to make sure that all of their spaces are like super inclusive, super safe. Everybody feels really comfortable, really welcome. Parties like, I'm sure you've heard of them, like Poppy Juice, Hot and Spicy.
But yeah, and a lot of times too, like I think a lot of times, for me, the best parties and the best times I feel like I've played really well, it's not really thought out at all. It really just is kind of like natural, and you know, and mostly in Brooklyn for the most part. I mean, you have like nowadays in Ridgewood, which I guess is like Queens kind of.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of it's kind of in Brooklyn and not so much in the city, where the city tends to now be a lot of these like bottle service clubs with like, you'd have like 5 girls with you and like buy a table sort of thing.
Or else you're not
or
getting
dress
in.
a certain way, or look a certain way, you know? Whereas like I feel like in Brooklyn it's not even as underground anymore, because it's not these like grimy warehouses, it's like actual venues that are a lot more inclusive, and yeah, just more about the music as opposed to like the way you dress and the way you look, and are you good enough to be here?
We try to model coloring lessons based off of this idea. We never want anybody to feel like rejected. We never want anybody to feel unsafe, uncomfortable. So yeah, I think it plays like a big part in like our party as well as the current scene.
Yeah,
no, that's it.
Yeah, let's talk some.
Yeah, let's go to the booth.
Cool.
Yeah, sick.
We're getting ready for this.